Hey guys, Uncle John from UncleJohnSoap.com. Today I want to talk to you about your straight razors. There's a lot of guys that when they first start out, it's tough enough trying to figure out how to hold them. This is the way I like to hold them. Some guys will put just fingers like that, some guys like that. I've seen other guys do other stuff. So while you're learning that, another thing you need to learn is how to take care of it. You let water sit on this, there's a couple things that are going to happen. I mean, like this is a gold dollar. I think this is a 208. Yeah, gold dollar 208. Got a nice little edge on it. Plastic scales, nothing major. But if you leave water in there, a couple things are going to happen. One, you'll get kind of a moldy, nasty mess in there, especially if there's any soap residue in there. And two, when you close your blade in there and there's any dampness on the inside of the scales, even though it doesn't really touch, it'll rust that blade up. And you don't want to do that. So one of the first things I like to do when I'm done shaving is, take a little tissue paper and completely dry, let me do this on camera, completely dry your blade. Be careful with your thumb, this blade will go through paper. But try to get as close to the edge as you can, completely dry it off, dry this part here, and then when you're done that, come back with another piece that's been folded up, so it's fairly substantial. And we'll fold this blade out of the way here and show you. And this space in here, I try not to get that wet when I'm shaving, but sometimes it just happens. If I don't get any water in there, it's less to clean up. But if you did, see how I'm kind of feeding that into the handle, and just kind of work it around, get everything nice and dry. Do it on the reason I have to pull it back out is there's a little stem in there where it hits right behind the heel on the blade to keep it from going all the way through and cutting your finger while you're holding the scales. Wipe it out, dry it out. If you need to grab a third piece, just make sure everything's nice and dry. And one of the other reasons to not get any moisture inside of your scales is when you get water in here around the pin, it'll create rust and all kinds of problems. So you just try not to do it if you can help it. I don't like, with my double edge razors, I rinse them in the sink. I take the blade and swish it around in the water. I try not to do that with these. I buy cheap bar towels at the big box stores, and what I'll do is between passes it's folded up on my counter like this, and then I'll just wipe the blade and then continue shaving. Once in a while I may need to rinse, but it's pretty rare unless I'm hacking down a forest back here or something. Okay, so you got your blade completely dry. The next thing you want to do is learn how to strop. And if you don't have a strop yet, there's ways around that, but for right now, for simplicity, I'm going to assume that you have some kind of a strop, a leather strop, and that's what I want to show you now. Okay, so this is where I hang my strop on the side of one of my displays in the shop. And it's just a simple little brass cup hook. If you've got something that you can screw into the side of your vanity, these cup hooks work pretty well, and you don't need to put a ton of tension on these, but you do want to keep them fairly taut. If they round out too bad, what happens is you'll actually round the end of your blade, and then it'll need to be rehoned. You don't want to do that. So, you can see, you can kind of see the edge on that. Get a little reflection going there. And what happens is, even though this blade feels smooth to you, sorry about that, I'm ducking, I have it set up for the strop, but I wanted to explain this. Even though the blade feels smooth to you, it doesn't feel like a steak knife with serration. All blades, even what you think is perfectly smooth, under magnification, has slight serrations to it. And what happens is, as you use the blade, if this is the point of the blade, those serrations tend to start bending down like little saw teeth. And that's when you're going to start feeling tugging and pulling, and it's not going to feel good. So, just like with a kitchen knife, if you run it on one of those little steels, it's a steel rod with the ridges in it, if you run it on that, run your blade on that, what happens is as you run that blade back and forth, it stands those teeth up. It brings it back to a point. So that's kind of what stropping is. and it also polishes the blade depending on what you're using on your strop. You know, the leather itself will polish, but let me show you. So I have two components on the strops that I carry, and I have these made for me, by the way, locally to my shop. I have my leather, I have the smooth side, and this is just cowhide, and then the scrub leather side, which is kind of rough for leather, and then I have the cotton canvas part of the strop. And these are 3 inches because they're easier to use. If you use a narrow strop, any narrower than that, you'll have to do what's called an X pattern, which is you start at the heel and come off the strop as you go to make sure you hit the whole blade. Okay? So, what I usually do is when I'm done shaving, I'll hit the linen or the canvas. It touches the blade up and it helps make sure that that edge is totally dry. After I've dried the whole thing anyway, but I just want to make sure the edge, because water sitting on that edge, when you go to shave with it, it'll feel like you've been cutting cardboard. So, like I said, you don't have to keep it super tight, but you want some kind of taut. And when you hold the blade, you're just going to hold it with 2 fingers, your thumb and your forefinger, just like that. I'm right-handed, but you'll have to adjust. And you're not putting a ton of pressure on it. I do push a little harder than some guys. I think it's Geo Fatboy. He uses blade weight only when he strops on his leather. I don't think I've ever seen him use the canvas, but I push a little bit when I'm on there, and you can kind of hear it. And you're just rolling the blade, making sure you're leading with the spine. You want to lead with the spine, otherwise you'll just hack your strop up and ruin your edge anyway. And strops aren't cheap if you've priced them recently. So do about between 25 and 50 round trips. So this is 1, right there, 1, 2. And I kind of let that go a little slack if you saw it. Between 25 and 50 times when I'm done shaving, it touches the edge up and it makes sure that there's no moisture left on that edge at all. Then when you're getting ready to shave, sometimes I'll touch it on the cotton a little bit, and then I don't know why I do it, superstition maybe, and some guys just only ever use the smooth side of the leather. But what I'll do is, I'll do the cotton maybe, definitely do the scrub leather, which is the rougher leather side. And again, between 25 and 50 passes. And then I'll turn it to the smooth side of the leather. And the same thing, 25 to 50 passes. And it's not about speed. I've never seen anything that proves going fast on this does anything other than get you shaving faster. So don't be afraid to take your time. You can do it just like that. So you make sure your blade's facing the right way and you're not cutting the leather, and that works just fine. Like I said, you know, if you're wet shaving, you're not in a hurry anyway. Most of the time. Wet shaving is not necessarily about just the utilitarian getting the shave done because it has to be done. It's kind of about your little zen time, and a lot of you guys like to collect razors and stuff anyway, hardware, software. So that polishes that edge up really nice, and it gets it ready to shave. If you start feeling any tugging and it's making your eyes water, in fact, I know I was watching Geo Fatboy because he says that term. If your eyes are watering, it's time to touch this thing up. Now, every so often, it depends again on how often you use this blade. A lot of guys that collect, they'll use this straight razor one day. The next day they'll be on one of their double edges. The day after that they'll be on a single edge. Then they'll be on a shick. Then they'll be on another straight razor. Maybe the razor only gets used once a week, once every 2 weeks. Some guys use them every day, and they'll just use them until they feel like changing. But if you were to use this every day, this was your daily shaver, I would say every 2 to 3 months you'll need to have it put on a hone. And as long as you don't tear it up and you strop it like you should be regularly, you know, it should be very quick, very reasonably priced to have somebody hone it, unless you're honing yourself. There's something else you can do every so often that'll help. And I don't have any paste with me today, but on the cotton canvas or on your linen, whatever type you're using, what I like to do on these is one side of this, I like to take it's a chromium oxide paste, the green paste, and I can't remember what the grit is. It's pretty, maybe 6,000 roughly, but I usually rub that on here. I get the crayons because it's just easier for me. I can rub it right on here, and then I have a kind of a junk blade that I'll kind of work it in with, and then I'll come after it with this blade. So you hit it with the paste, and that actually helps cut into the metal a little and actually sharpen. Then you wipe your blade. That's something else I meant to tell you. Wipe your blade between each surface that you go to. What I just showed you a minute ago, just hopping from here to the scrub leather to the leather. If it's your own personal strop, I don't think it's horrible, but it's a good practice to kind of take a piece of tissue, wipe any debris off the blade if there's any metal that was removed. Definitely, if you use the paste, then go to the clean side, wipe it off in between times, make sure it's clean, then do the clean side, then your scrub leather, then the smooth leather, and that'll keep you in good shape. I mean, even me with all this mess, I can shave around this with one of these. I shouldn't say with no problem. I do have some issues, but that's mostly technique because I just learned recently myself how to use one. I can sharpen them, okay. I can strop them, but actually learning the technique to be able to stretch the skin, see in the mirror, that's a whole other story. But anyway, and if you're interested in these strops, I've got them available on the website. It takes me about 2 weeks to get them. So basically you place your order, and I usually have a couple sitting around, but just to make sure, because I have these made by hand, I like to give it a 2-week lead time. Odds are you'll get it a little bit quicker. That just gives me a little bit of a buffer in the guy that's making them. And if you can see, let me bring you a little closer here. There you go. I have these as separate components, and there's a reason for that. And I put a steel ring on here because if I move it from this hook to another hook, or if you store it in your bathroom linen closet hanging up, but then you take it out to use it, and then you just slap it on the hook. I like having the strops separate because when I go to use the cotton component, say, I can pull it up like this, and I'm not fighting it. I'm not fighting against this one. It just hangs on its own. I can spin it around, no problem. Then I grab my leather one, same thing. Nothing's in the way. I find that when I use the strops where they're connected at the top, riveted or clamped, however they're put together, when I go to use this one, it's okay. If I use the scrub leather side, what happens is it turns over, they're connected. Now I have this to deal with. I've got to fold it up out of the way somehow. I don't know, it's just awkward for me, and I'm already awkward enough. So I like the separate components, but yeah, check them out on the website, unclejohnsoap.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message. If I can't answer it, I will put you on to the guys that can. All right, guys, have a great afternoon.